All right, I see there's attendees still entering the GoToWebinar here, but we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome everybody to our Sage Intacct user group. On the screen, we have our presenters today. Myself, Luke Lothamer. We also have Adam Westcurtis, Cassie Rock, Nathan Lichty, Brad Prather, and Logan Lemon. I know many of you are familiar with us already, whether via implementation or Intacct support. But for those of you who aren't familiar with our team, those are the 6 of us consultants, and Adam handles most of the sales on the Intacct front. So also behind the scenes, we've got Sherry Zimmerman and Leah Peters helping with the marketing of the user group, so I want to give a shout out to them as well. If anybody is having issues as we go through the webinar today, please feel free to contact Leah. Her number is at the bottom there. If you're having any connection or audio video issues, please reach out to her. For those of you who have joined our user groups in the past, you're familiar with the chat feature, but if you're new, we do allow for participation. We don't necessarily open up the phone lines, but if you have questions or want us to elaborate on anything, please enter that in the chat. And we'll try to pause here and there to answer any questions. If we're kind of running behind on time, we may bypass those pauses, but we will be sure to answer any questions after the webinar if they go unanswered. We have a full agenda for today. We're going to start off with some release updates, and then we're going to go into our module or specific area-based topics. So we're going to learn about custom reports and the interactive custom report writer, dynamic allocations, fixed assets, time and expense. And then the final 3, the 6, 7, 8 spots there, those are going to be ISVs. So if you're not familiar with ISVs, that stands for Independent Software Vendor. These are going to be your add-ons to Sage Intacct. So 6, we have Donor Perfect, who we have not had join us in the past. You're in for a treat with Joel there. And then 7, 8, Ramp. Some of you I know may be using Ramp already or have seen a demo of it. So you'll get a feel for that. And then number 8, we have also presented Martis in past sessions. So we'll cover that as well. That's going to be a more sophisticated budgeting tool than what Intacct itself has. So we'll cover those 3 near the end. We'll have kind of a pause or a break in between 5 and 6 there. So we would love for you to stick around for all of our topics today. Once again, introductions. I think many of you are familiar with us, whether one consultant, many consultants. This is our team here. So if you have questions or need help with anything in the future, feel free to reach out to any of us via email or call us directly with the phone numbers there at the bottom of the slide. Introductions to DWD Technology Group. We were established in 1939. We are a division of the CPA firm Doolin, Ward & DeWalt, located in Northeast Indiana, and we are comprised of right around 90 staff. The tech group itself is made up of mostly software consultants and network engineers. Many of our software consultants are also CPAs. We have been nominated for a few awards on the accounting technology side. So you can see there at the bottom, Accounting Today's 2025 Top 100 VARs, and then also Bob Scott's Top 100 VARs. All right, a few housekeeping items. I know we presented this in our last user group, but I wanted to bring this up because it does still come up. Those of you who are an administrator of your account, you do have the power to add additional users in Intacct. So with the power comes great responsibility. If you blow past the message on the screen here, you potentially could be charged automatically for a new user. So what we always want to try to help you out with on the DWD side is let you know of your total user count. If you're ever unsure of how many users you have, whether that be used up or open, always reach out to us and we can give you an accurate number. And then if you need to add a new user, we can get that paperwork started on our end. Again, the software is going to allow you to add users no matter what, if you have permissions to do so. And you're going to see this message. If you choose to go past this and you don't have any open users or seats or licenses, you will be automatically invoiced. So just a heads up, wanted to mention that again this time around. Some additional information on our software solutions. We are a Sage shop, and what I mean by that is if you look at the solutions down the list there, everything outside of MIP starts with Sage. We do still service MIP, and many of you may have come from the MIP solution or could be potentially still on MIP. So we do help out on that. And again, our webinar here today is going to be covering Sage Intacct. If you know of anyone who needs help or assistance with any of the other solutions, DWD is always open to help with those too. For network services, we do also offer managed IT security plans, data backup services, Microsoft Office 365, and managed IT services. All right, final housekeeping item. We do offer client advisory services. Many of you, if you've heard of this, they abbreviate it, and it's CAS, C-A-S. And some people think of this as outsourced accounting, but we have a different take on that. So one of the, I should say, three of the big things that are taking the accounting world by storm is talent shortage, high turnover, and retirement wave. And we foresee these three things not only increasing, but not necessarily going away in the future. So some of you with your organizations may be battling one or multiple of these factors here. So we want you to use DWD for a variety of things. We want to be similar to if you have an electrician or a plumber that you go to for your home items. We want to be your technology advisor and your accounting advisor. So our take is we want to help you leverage technology to do more, not only with Sage Intacct, but potentially other solutions, whether it be budget, payroll, donor solution, anything on that side of things we can help with. We have an understanding, we have go-to solutions that we work with day in and day out. And we can be a permanent or a temporary solution. So if you have turnover or you're looking to replace somebody because they're retiring, we can jump in fairly quickly, especially if you're on Sage Intacct, and help out in many different areas. So again, permanent or temporary, if you wanted us to take on tasks that, again, can be confused with outsourced accounting, but I want you guys to remember client advisory services or CAS today. So if you think that might be something you'd like to explore, we'd love to schedule a free needs assessment today. Jumping into our first topic is going to be 2025 release updates. And I'm going to move to the next slide. These are some of the hand-picked updates that I'm going to go through with you today. I do want to mention that there are many other release updates that you can go through, and I'll show you where those can be found. And then I'll circle back to the slide. So right now I'm going to jump into Sage Intacct. All right, so for those of you who aren't familiar with the releases, anything new that Sage offers, you can see right when you log in, if you see this screen, you can see 2025 Release 3 is here. And then the release notes, you can click on that. And what I want you to see is on the far left side, you can notice Release 3. They also have all of their prior releases here. And you can drill down into the different areas. So again, as I scroll here, I handpicked a couple of these to show you today. But I would encourage everyone to come out here and get familiar. Some of the modules may not apply to your organization, but it at least gives you an idea of the different areas that Sage continues to develop on a quarterly basis. So the first update that I'm going to share with you is going to be purchasing related. So if you all use the purchasing module, one thing they have done is they've given you the ability to combine multiple documents into a single transaction. And you will have to do a quick configuration change, which can be found here. Again, if you have permissions to do so, you can come into configuration. And then when I scroll down, it's going to be this checkbox right here, enable conversions for multiple source documents. You might be wondering, well, what does that even mean? Essentially, if you order many different items, or your users, I should say, request many different items from, let's say, Amazon, you can combine those documents into one. So if Amazon invoices you once for many different orders, this gives you that ability to combine them. So when I come out here and I go to my invoices, let's go into vendor invoices and ransom counseling services right here. This is the vendor I'm looking at. When I come out here to edit this existing invoice, you'll see this option here, convert from an existing transaction. If there are other transactions outstanding that can be pulled into this, they'll be listed here. So I can select this one. And you're going to notice down below, it's now added this line item to my original entry. So it's combined that from multiple documents into one. Again, that's the convert from an existing transaction. That's only going to appear if you turn on that setting or functionality from the configuration screen. Next up is going to be another purchasing update. So I showed this on a past user group. There is a configuration that can be turned on for tolerances. So if quantities or prices are changed and it exceeds a certain percent, it's going to flag it as an exception. So if you have, let's just say, users who request items and then it goes through the workflow, the proper channels, and something from the quantity or price side changes in the middle of the workflow, this can flag it as an exception. So if we go back to my purchasing transaction area, when I come out here to my purchase orders, and if I go to convert, and let's just say I change this from 20,500 to 25,000 and post. All right, so I have converted that to a vendor invoice. And for those of you who aren't necessarily familiar with the purchasing module, this is going through my workflow within my specific instance here. But I've converted a PO to an invoice. And out here, you'll notice in the state column, this exception, that is now flagged. It doesn't mean anything's been posted. It means it needs to be reviewed. So that part of it isn't the new functionality. What is new, when I scroll down here on my exception, you'll see this View Exceptions button here at the top of the transaction or entry grid. You can click on that, and that'll tell you the percentage in which it has exceeded the original amount. So you might remember mine said 5%, but this obviously is much greater than 5%. We're close to 22% there. So what that means for you or whoever might be the one reviewing this, you can send it back and say, hey, there's something wrong with this, we can't accept it. Or if it looks good from the person who is reviewing this, you can override the exception. It will then go into a posted status. So again, this View Exceptions is the new functionality. It lets you know how much it has exceeded that tolerance level. All right, jumping to our next release update, we're going to go to the AP module. And one thing they have added is the ability to delegate bill approvals. So if I come here to setup, go to configuration, many of you, if you're administrators or a part of the configuration conversations, journal entries have the ability to delegate to specific approvers. That functionality has now been passed on to AP as well. So in my AP configuration, the approval area now shows this, where you can enable delegation, and then you'll see a manage button beneath that. If I click into it, anybody who is defined as an approver can then be set to have a delegate. Okay, the delegate's going to be here on the column to the far right. So if, let's just say Carla here is out of the office, maybe she's on vacation for 7 days, she can make this person her delegate and turn on approvals for that user while she's out. So you'll want to start by defining your delegates here. Once that's completed, if you're going to be the one out of the office, you can come up here to My Preferences. And if I scroll down right here, Approval Delegation, there's the bill approvals. You can see Purchasing offers delegates as well. But you can turn on the delegation, and then you can define what the start and end date might be. So in between that period, everything that would typically come to you for approval would go to the delegate named here. All right, one other quick AP update that they have added. If you come into your vendor listing, and you'll notice to the far right, there is now a pay option in green. You can come over here and click on this, and what that does is it brings up the pay bill screen with a filter already applied to that vendor. So if you had a vendor that receives many invoices and you want to focus in on those and not have everything else as noise, you can select the vendor from the vendor list and then just pick and choose which ones to pay, and you're only going to see that vendor's listing here. So I thought that was a nice feature that they added. Jumping over to cash management and, more importantly, bank reconciliation, they have added additional rules for the matching. If you come here to cash management, setup tab at the top, assignment rules. If you're not familiar with this, this can assist with your bank reconciliation process. So you would flag a customer and say, okay, anything that matches the criteria below will be tied to this customer, in this case, Phoebe. The change that they've made is anything in this drop-down menu here, these options have been added. So you can filter on more than just what used to be posting date, transaction type, document type, payee, document number, and amount. If you scroll down, you have many other options. So you can really refine what should be assigned to this customer up above. So if it finds certain values when the bank sends transactions over to Intacct, if it finds certain values, it'll tie them to a specific customer, and then the end goal is to speed up your reconciliation process at the end of the month. Okay, so the values in this drop-down listing is what has been improved. All right, and last but not least, I'm going to touch on one other area of improvement, and I'll go to the release notes for this as it is ongoing and available to you potentially. So if you look at the Copilot, I did talk about last time the search help option. Sage has since released the close automation to the general client base. And these screenshots are what I'm going to use, and you'll see them in my slide deck too. They have created this close automation to help speed up your month close. And this close assistant will bring up more or less a checklist and say, okay, have you reviewed unposted bills? Have you reviewed unposted invoices? And the end goal is to get everything closed from your AP and AR subledgers, cash management, and then at the very bottom, your GL and total. In between, they'll have you review different things. So they have a subledger reconciliation assistant. And when I click on this screenshot, it's going to compare your GL balances to your AP subledger balances. And if there's a variance, it's going to show that. And then you can investigate to find out why there's a difference. Maybe there's an entry that's posted to your subledger but not your GL, and you'll have to troubleshoot and see why that might have occurred. And then there's also a variance analysis, so it's going to compare your actuals and your budget, and it's going to have a normalized variance here. So if it's revenue and you have higher actuals than what was budgeted, that's going to be a positive variance. If you have higher expenses than what was actually budgeted, that's going to be a negative, and then it'll give you your net. So these combined make up the close automation. So if anybody is interested in this, I'd be happy to talk more about it and provide more information. At this time, we have our first poll question.
All right. If everyone can see the poll question and go ahead and submit your answers.
Good participation there. Looks like we've got close to 70% voted on the poll question.
All right. Go ahead and close that and share the responses. There we go.
Perfect. So kind of what I expected. We've got right in the middle, 50% 7 to the 14-day range. That's what I would have expected going into it. Some of you are even faster there, 3 to 7 day range. That's great. If you ever want to try to improve the time it takes you to close the books at month end, there may be some things we can help you with in Sage Intacct to speed that process up. So we'd love to help you with that, and can try to figure out some things that would improve the number of days it takes to close. At this point, I'm going to pass it over to Cassie to talk about custom reports.
Hi everyone, I'm Cassie. So I'm going to talk about reports today. I want to start with a poll question. Are you interested in having more reporting capabilities? Is the question.
We'll leave it up for about 10 more seconds here. All right, very good. We will close it and share the results.
As I expected, many of you said yes. So today, hopefully, I can show you some stuff that can maybe give you better insights into your company. So today, I'm going to go over Custom Report Writer and ICRW, the Interactive Custom Report Writer. These are reports outside of financial reports that can give you good insight into your company's data. They allow you to see financial data, non-financial data, or a combination of both. So to kind of go over a few things that I'll cover how to build a custom report, how to use the ICRW, and then how these tools can be beneficial to your needs. So for custom reports, you can build the reports outside of the financial report. So I'm going to walk through how one of those are built. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up Intacct. So if you come in here to your applications menu and go to report, you'll see custom reports. And this is only if you have this feature turned on. It is a subscription that you'll have to subscribe to. So we'll go into custom reports. And I'm going to go in this first one and edit it and walk you through that. But you can add new ones here, and it's going to look the same as this one, just blank. But I'll click edit here. This first step is kind of the most important step. It's telling where you want the data source to pull from. So this one is pulling from purchase order transaction details. But if you look down in this drop down, you'll see a lot of different options. So we've got some allocations here you could pull from. You've got all the AP and AR and many different options here, like GL information. So this is just telling this where you want this to pull from the system for this report. So we're going to continue with the purchase order one here. And I'm going to kind of go over some of these steps here, highlight the important ones. So there's 15 steps for creating this report. So I'm going to go to the next one since we've selected the data source. And this is where you're going to add columns to the report. So you go through and choose by checking off which columns you want. So we've got the billable, build, price, item IDs, quantity for this report here. And you'll scroll down, you'll see different sections. And that's based on what we chose in that first step. So these sections will differ based on which part of the system you're pulling from for the report. But you can choose a lot of different options here. So then you'll see the next steps are kind of adding different columns, changing the order, totals. I'm not going to go into each of one of these, but I'll highlight a couple. So filtering the report, if you want to filter by any of these checkboxes, you have that option there. If you want to group data, so if you wanted to group this by vendor, you could do that. So you choose which field you want to group the data by. And then you've got include additional prompts. So if you want prompts outside of the date for when you run the report, you could add a location prompt, department, anything like that. You can add additional prompts. And then you can save it once you're done and add it to a menu. I'll just mention that you can hit this checkbox to add it to a menu, and it's going to ask you which application. So I've added this one to the purchase order one. So it'll appear in our drop down, and I'll show you that in a minute. But I'll just mention that while you're working on this report, you can click Run Report, and it'll show you an example of the report. That way you can kind of see what you're working with as you work through all these steps. So now I'm going to show you the results of this. So if we come up here to our menu, and since I added this to purchasing, you'll see custom reports, and then this our report right here. I'm going to click on it to run it. And then these are the prompts that were set up. So date, we'll run it for a date. And then if you wanted to filter it by location or department, or in this case we have state, which is your approved, declined, draft, pending options there that purchasing uses. And then we can click view. And this is what the report looks like. So it's based on those columns that we picked when we were building this. And then this is grouping it by vendor here. So it's giving you the subtotal for each vendor. And you can see it's pulling in like quantities and prices and kind of the state of the transaction. So it's giving you more insight into things that maybe aren't on your financial reports. And then you'll see up at the top, you have the options to print this, email it, add a dashboard, memorize, and then export with any of these options. So next, I'm going to talk about the interactive custom report writer. These reports allowed you to build interactive data analysis. So you can use the pre-built interactive custom reports. Using these reports from the report library is the recommended best practice. So I'm going to start by editing one of those reports from the report library, and then kind of walk through all the different aspects of it. Let me switch back here, and I'll come back up in Intacct and go to reports. And you'll see interactive custom reports below custom reports. This is also something you'll have to have a subscription for as well. So. All right, so out here you'll see the list of interactive custom reports. So this one out here that I saved outside of the report library. So up here at the top, you'll see this report library. I'm going to go in there. This is where all the ones that are pre-built are in here. So you'll see a lot of different aspects of the system, different modules that these refer to here. And the best practice is using one of these editing it and adjusting it to your needs. So I'm going to click edit on this top AP top spin because it's a pretty common one that we see people request. Hit edit. Then I'm going to go through each of these different tabs here at the top. I'll start with this one for define. This gathers the data to be included in the report and lets you drag and drop the different columns. So here you'll see the columns, so you'll see you can drop the sections, or if you want to just drag the column and move it around, you can, and insert it wherever you need. If you also want to add additional columns to this report, you can go over here to this panel on the side, the AP bill detail, and you'll have these different sections here for what you want to add. I'm going to choose the dimensions for this case and say we want to add class. I'm going to select the class ID here and then just drag it over here. And then you can move it to wherever you would want it in the report. So I'll move it here to the end. You'll also see with these drop downs for each section, you can add a sort. So if you wanted to sort by total due, you could do that here for this one. If you wanted to add a filter, you can filter on that column too. And you'll see the different options here. You can do equal, is null is in the top, bottom, those kind of things. So if you want to also add just filters to the whole report, you can do that in this bottom section here. You'll see filters, and then over here to the right, create a new filter. And then what do you want to create that filter based on? So if I wanted to do total paid here, we could do total paid, and then you choose your operator. So this one, you could say, is in the top, and then it's going to give us a value 10 here. You could change that to how many ever, and then it would show me just the top 10 vendors. And you'll see it's added right here in the filter section. So if you wanted to edit that, you can do that with the pencil. If you want to copy it, or even remove it, you can delete it with the X here. Next, the Refine tab. This shows you what the report's going to look like when you run it. You can also drag new columns on the report here to see it instantly. So this kind of gives you just a preview of what the report's going to look like. If you want to change any of the title header here, you can do it with the pencil. You can use this with the box around it to edit the formatting for the header here, or you can do that for the table below, and it will let you kind of change the background color, borders, any kind of customization for formatting you want here. But if you want to also add columns from this screen, you can as well. So if we wanted to go in and add the name for the class, since we just have the ID, we can drag it here as well and put it in there. And it's going to add it to the report in real time. And then the prompts tab is the next one. So if you want prompts for when you go to run this report, this is where you can add those here. So there's a few already set up. So if I click edit on this first one, this is a presentation variable one. So this is giving a prompt for top vendors, and then you have a choice list here. You have different options. Choice list is going to allow you to add values here to pick from a list. So this one's like, is it going to show the top 3, 5, 10, 15, 20? So when they run it, they'll have the option to choose that. The next filter here is a column filter. So this one is bill state, and it's allowing you to have a choice list too. It's going to just give you the different options for bill state when it's prompted here. So, but this is based on that column. If you want to add a new one, it's this little plus sign here. And you can do it, the one for the columns, the variable prompt, like the first one we looked at, or currency for an amount prompt. All right, the last tab here, the custom tab. This is where you can examine and create custom SQL statements in a report and join 2 or more reporting areas using SQL. This is definitely for more advanced users. but it does give you this ability to use those SQL statements for reporting. So I'm not going to go into much more detail on that. But once you have your report set up, then you'll want to save it out there. So because we're editing the one in the report library. So you'll see this save button over here, save as. It's going to pull this up and it's going to show you this Intacct library to save it in. You want to make sure to choose your instance here. So you'll see that one that's already saved out there. And then you would just rename it and give it a description and save it. And it's going to add it to your list of ICRW reports. All right. I'm going to go back to our list here. So I'll run this report in a second, but I'm going to go over these few things here. So edit, that will take you into where you are to edit it, and you can run the report, and that'll bring up the prompts and everything. Run interactive is just going to also bring up the screen where you can add columns and interact with it, similar to what we were just looking at. You can also add it to a menu, just like in the custom reports. If you want to add this to your AP menu, you can add it to the menu. Advanced settings, that's going to be if you want to restrict users from seeing this report or specify who exactly can view this report, you can do that in the advanced settings. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and run this report, but I'll show you from accounts payable menu. So if we go here and you'll see custom reports and then this report right here. So we can click run here. And then it's going to pull up the prompts that we set up. So you'll see this drop down for that count or how many top vendors we want to show. Bill state, so if you want to select that, you can do here, add which ones you want. And then if you wanted to do a location, and if you wanted to add in a date, start date and end date. I'm just going to run this as is. And here you'll see the output of the report that we built. So it's showing the top 5 or the top vendor spends here. You can export it. So you'll see you can export the formatted version to PDF, Excel, whichever you prefer, or just the data if you just want the data and not the formatting. And then you'll see the same kind of options up here where you can email, add a dashboard, or memorize, just like you see with most reports in the system. So there's a lot of different options with this interactive custom report writer. This is just kind of basic AP spend one, but there's a lot of different options. So you can really get into some detailed reporting with this. But this is all I have to show for today. So I think we have Logan up next, so I'll hand it off to him.
Can you see my slides?
Yep.
All right, I'm gonna start out with a couple of polls here just to get a feel for where everybody's at. So I'm Logan. I'm gonna be talking about dynamic allocations in Sage Intacct. And our first poll question here is gonna be, how do you do, are you currently allocating shared expenses? If so, how do you do it? Some examples of shared expenses are admin expenses, so like overhead, your IT, rent. These are the types of things we're going to be talking about. Nice. Looks like we got a nice little rainbow of everybody's using a variety of methods here, but it looks like currently Excel is in the lead, and then we have some other people using Intacct's transaction allocations and dynamic allocations. We got some other things going on. So thanks for evaluating that. I have one more poll question. If Sherry could share the next poll question here. It's maybe a little bit of a leading question, but how confident are you that your current allocations reflect real activity, usage, headcount, revenue, whatever you are basing your allocations on today? Nice. So we got a variety here. Some are very confident. Got some somewhat confident, some not confident. Again, if you don't have allocations, maybe it's not applicable to you. Cool, thanks for answering those questions. So what I'm going to talk about today is dynamic allocations in Sage Intacct. And so allocations involve allocating expenses or revenues, like we were just talking about, to various of your dimensions. So when we're thinking about what we're allocating things to, it might be a location, multiple locations, multiple departments. If you do grants, it might be multiple different grants. If you have business segments, it might be different business segments. So one of the challenges that we still see a lot of, and I can tell by the poll here, is doing allocations the old-fashioned way, which a lot of times involves at least some Excel work where you might have a spreadsheet where every month you dump in trial balance, detail, or summary data, and out pops an entry if you're lucky, or you have to go and manually key some of these formulas in on what are we allocating to these departments this month, or what are we allocating to these grants this month. And then you might take that Excel spreadsheet and try and put it into an import template and hope that the import template gets in there, and you might have a pretty good system, or it might be more manual than that, where you manually keying in numbers into an import spreadsheet or manually keying them into Intacct. So ultimately, what we see a lot of times is if you're using more of a manual process, it's going to slow your month close down because you're waiting on everything else to come in and get closed. And then you're kind of one of the last steps is allocating out these overhead or other revenues and expenses that are indirect. So that's one of the problems we're trying to solve here with Intacct allocations. And so not to be confused with dynamic allocations, we have what's called first a transaction allocation. And this is actually standard functionality in Intacct, so this is not an additional subscription. You could turn on transaction allocations in your system today if you're not already. And the use cases for these are primarily percentage-based, exact amounts, or fixed amounts. But what you would see here, and I'm going to demo this later, but this is a per transaction allocation. And so if I have one transaction I'm entering today, I'm entering an AP bill for rent, and I would want to allocate that out to multiple departments at one time, it's going to create a calculation that breaks out these line items by the dimension that I'm trying to do. And so I can also use these on imports, and I can also import transaction allocations if I have a very complicated or large number of items I'm trying to allocate to, if I have 25 locations or 100 grants. So really, this transaction allocations is a pretty powerful tool, and that might be underutilized today if you're just looking to take advantage of the free functionality that you already have in Sage Intacct. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that. The next type of allocation is the dynamic allocation, which we're going to spend a little bit more time explaining. And this is additional functionality in Intacct. So there's a fee. It's basically adding a module into your system. But what it will do is at the end of the month or at a certain period, this can be monthly, quarterly, weekly, even daily or multiple times a day, we can allocate these indirect or overhead revenues and expenses based on statistical or dynamic financial data. And so this can be really complex. This can be really simple. It can be multi-step. You can have a big group of multiple allocations run together. And so all you do is click one button and 100 different allocations run and separate different expenses that are shared between departments or locations or grants, and it will break these out as a whole. So this is more of your trial balance level balances. This is, you're not going into each individual general ledger transaction and allocating them like a transaction allocation. This is a dynamic allocation. So it's going to create a dynamically allocated entry. And so with this, with some extra complexity comes some training and assistance is probably going to be recommended if you were to implement this, but we're always happy to work with you and try and help with what fits your needs for implementing dynamic allocations if this is something you're interested in. So this is a pretty helpful diagram here of how it works. And so we have our source transactions here. So one of the easy example might be rent. We have the basis that we want it to be. So this might be based on a square foot. You might also base it by revenue for a department or however you want to allocate. And then what it's going to do is creates the basis that then creates the target for the amounts that are going to go to each of your programs, your departments, grants. Again, any dimension is usable in these dynamic allocations, and so it's really very versatile. And then you kind of have your nice little result here at the end of it's allocated a piece of this pie to each of the dimensions that you decided. So hopefully to keep things a little bit tangible, we have some standard use cases here and these are super basic. So dynamic allocations is really pretty powerful. If you are thinking about how you allocate revenue or expenses today, you might just shoot one of us an email and say, hey, here's how I do my allocation today. And a lot of times we can provide you with some guidance on would dynamic allocations be a good fit. And the more they add to the module, the more it can do just about anything. But some standard use cases here would be allocating rent by square foot. And so we would have rent payments come in for one or more of our buildings that we're renting, and we have square footage amounts taken up by each department. And so we're going to allocate these rental costs for each location relative to the amount of space the department is taking up. And so if our admin department is taking up half and then our IT department is taking up half, then we would allocate that accordingly by square foot. And so this would look like, if you've heard of a statistical entry in Intacct, we would use statistical data for this. Another example would be a fringe benefit by salary actuals. And so this is taking salary data that is financial data in your system, general ledger data, and allocating that based on actual salary expenses from the GL. So Intacct is going to look directly at the data that comes in from the payroll entry, and then you might have other fringe benefits that aren't allocated to departments or programs, and you're going to allocate that based on what the salary expense is for. The other cool thing I noted down here at the bottom is with dynamic allocations, we can actually run reports to see pre and post allocation. So you can toggle those on your reports in the general ledger reports and in financial reports. So it's really a pretty dynamic tool. So now I'm going to show you a couple quick examples of how we see this module used and how we would recommend this module to be used. But can you see my Intacct here? So first, I'm going to start out, though, with that transaction allocation breakout, just because I think it would be beneficial to see how that works if you've never seen it before. So I have a journal entry here that I've used a transaction allocation. So this is, all you have to do is flip the switch in your system and turn it on. And if you see here, I have this allocation field, and I have multiple different transaction allocations that I've made in the system. This one is going to be called a 50-50. And so what this is going to do, if I look at what it's done, it's actually done an allocation split for me down here, and it's allocated half of this expense to my vehicle department and half of this expense to my group department. So again, I can also have other dimensions in here. Maybe it's going to go to a grant, a location. I can allocate to any of these dimensions here that you see. If I were to look and see quickly how to build one of these allocations, I'm just going to view this guy. All I would do is come in here into the allocation information, and I can go and edit values in here. So I have a percentage I can allocate by, exact amounts, fixed amounts with over under logic. And again, these I would have to select this 50-50 split for each transaction that I want to use. So if I do an AP bill, I would have to select this as my transaction allocation. If I do a journal entry, I'd have to select that in the entries grid. I could always modify and do any additional entries in here at any point in time. These are editable. So that is transaction allocation. Now I'm going to jump in here into the dynamic allocations. And so dynamic allocations live in the general ledger, but there's this account allocations module down here that gets added that you don't see unless you have dynamic allocations. So I'm going to view the allocation log, which are some allocations that I've run in the past. You'll notice here that I have some standalone ones that I've run previously. I've run this benefits one, but I've also have what I call a waterfall, where I've run allocation 1 here, and then I've run and allocated additional things either based on that allocation or in sequence with that allocation. So I would just go in the allocations and run this waterfall group, and it would automatically run both of these here. So practically speaking, what does it look like when we create this entry? So I'm going to view one of the entries that this created. And this is the entry that was created for this allocation 1. And I'll show you why it's doing what it's doing here in a second. But you'll just notice here, I've allocated expense for office supplies to this shared pool. And so this might be general office supplies. And I had an expense for $100 in here over the course of the month. And now, based on my criteria, I'm going to split it out 50-50 to these other departments. Okay, and so if I drill in on this description, I'm actually going to go into the brains behind the operation and see what makes up this allocation. And so each allocation for the dynamic allocation has an immutable audit trail that goes with it that shows how it was made, what numbers are behind the allocation, and what the logic is. And so what this is doing is, this is saying here, my allocation is going to take office supplies, this GL account here, 5,300, allocate all of it out based on a head count. And so this might be a number of employees that I have in my office. So, and their respective departments would be in there. And so I know that I have 10 employees in one department and 10 employees in another department. And so it's going to split that out based on this head count here, which is a statistical entry. And you'll notice here at the bottom, I can go into and see the split allocation here. And this is going to show me, here's why we did what we did. We calculated this split percentage as 50-50 based on this head count group that you said here. And so again, this is kind of why we recommend just having a training over this whenever we're going to it, because you have to fill out all these fields on the setup. But once you set it up, you can use these same allocations every month, every week if you wanted to, quarterly. And so it is a little bit of work up front, but then it can save you a lot of time down the road. Instead of running the same spreadsheets or macros or manually keying in entries every month, you would be able to go out here. I could click my generate allocation. I'm going to say I'm going to generate as of the end of last month. And I'll just do the same thing here. What allocation am I doing? Maybe I'm going to do this allocation that we were just looking at, and then generate. And that would generate my allocation. So that's some basics of it right there. The other thing I'll show you, so that was a statistical. We can also zoom in here a little bit. Let's get one pulled up here that has based on, oops, this one's also based on a statistical. Let's go back here. I'm going to show you an example that has general ledger behind it. So we can use both statistical and general ledger data to generate these allocations. So this one did a lot more work here. It's breaking all this stuff out to my different departments. Multiple different entities have activity that then I'm splitting out by entity and department. And so what's driving this is my personnel expense here. So I have personnel expense that then I'm going to then allocate out my professional fees expense. So professional fees, I might just get one big bill from the lawyer, one big bill from the accountants, and I want to allocate that to my different departments based on the personnel that have done activity that need audited or need legal fees. Again, I can look here, my split calculation. This one's going to be a lot more complicated. So this, again, is immutable on every entry that you see. You can always drill into this detail. And so it has an audit trail of why did we create what we created. Hopefully you guys have seen how this could be a good use for you. If you have use case questions on here's how we allocate some of our expenses, do you think this would work with dynamic allocations? I would say email a consultant that you know and we can talk about that. And hopefully this has been a helpful example of how you can better use Sage Intacct. Thanks. Yep, we'll turn it over to Brad now, it looks like.
All right, well, thank you again, everyone, for attending our user group meeting today. I'm going to speak for about the next 15 minutes on the fixed asset management. Just by a little bit of way of introduction here, that is a relatively new module. Some of you may or may not be using what is called SIG or SIG fixed assets. This is actually going to be different. It's native to Sage fixed assets. So it's a program we think is going to be good moving forward for fixed assets. Before I start, I would like to got a quick poll question. So if you could, Sherry, I think put that up, and then.
All right. So what are you currently using to track fixed assets?
All right. So we can see we've got over half together. Either the accountant does it or Excel spreadsheet. I am kind of a little bit surprised I added that last one in there for fun, but I thought there might be a couple actually who didn't even have time to track fixed assets and didn't do it to year end. So kudos to everybody out there who at least replied to say that they do in fact track their fixed assets one way or another. I'm going to go through, I've got some slides here. I'm going to hop back and forth between my slides and then actually into the fixed assets program. All right. So, fixed assets, I'm not going to read everything on these slides here, but obviously it's to track your fixed assets from the acquisition to disposal. So we can track and manage our assets, depreciate our assets, and also hopefully gain some reporting insights on those fixed assets, right? So what does it entail if you're going to use the fixed assets module, right? Here's the standard workflow. We're going to set up the fixed assets management module. There are certain criteria, configurations. Any module you've used before in Sage Intacct, that probably is not a surprise to you. We're going to create those assets. There are a number of ways to create those assets. Obviously, if this is going to be a new implementation for anybody, we'll probably do some importing of the existing assets, as well as the accumulated depreciation to date, depreciation methods, all those other things that go along with your existing fixed assets. Then once we get you up and running, of course, you're going to create assets as you then move forward. We're going to place those assets in service. We're going to depreciate those assets and probably post depreciation on a monthly basis. And then it may come at some point in time in the life of various assets where we dispose of those assets. Okay, so that's going to be the workflow at a high level in the fixed asset management module. Okay. There are a number of ways to create assets in the module itself. Due to the limited time I have today, I'm only going to go through one where I'm going to show you how it works from a bill. But do know that you could create assets manually. You could enter directly into the fixed assets module. And I probably should have also probably put a slash in there. When I say manually, that could in fact involve maybe importing that information as well, depending on the number of assets you may be adding. I'll show you here in a minute how we do that from AP bills. We can also do that from purchasing transactions or in bulk. Okay, so I'm going to go into Sage Intacct and show you how we add this information from a bill. So I've gone into the AP bills screen here. I'm going to create a new bill. I'm going to go ahead and use today's date. Choose my vendor Lenovo here. just make up a bill number. Okay. And here I'm going to put a description of what I am buying. So I'm buying 15 laptop computers. Okay, all this other information fills in standard on your from your AP vendor. If I've got that actual bill, I can certainly attach that here. I'm going to go down to my account and choose my computer equipment account here. Okay, and let's say that those are $1,000 a piece for a total of $15,000. There's our allocation that Logan just talked about. So if I want to do some allocations here and I had that, I can certainly do this. Every other functionality is the same here with your AP bill that you would have with any other bill. The difference is we're going to now go to the details section here. Okay, and I'm going to give this asset a name. I'm just going to make it the same, 15 laptop computers. Okay, and that's going to know to create this asset based on when I did my configuration, I told it, the asset module, what my asset accounts were. So whenever I entered something in that asset account, it was going to expect that I was going to be creating an asset. Okay, and if we want to use any of these other dimensions, we can also do that as well. All right, I'm going to go ahead and submit this bill. It should then post this bill, and then we will flip to the asset screen where we should then see the asset has been created. I may need to refresh that. All right, so there is my bill, my $15,000 bill. Okay, I'm going to go here and I'm going to refresh my screen here. And you see that I've got my 15 laptop computers have now been added to my asset list. Okay, now the fixed asset module is set up that when it comes in here at first, it's going to be ready for review. Okay, so now what somebody will do is they're going to come in here to that particular asset. And if we need to make any edits to that asset, we can. Again, I'm not for purposes of my demo here, okay? But if I needed to make some edits, I could certainly do that. Well, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and place that asset in service. And I'm going to go ahead and just make this nice and clean and say that I'm going to put it in actual placed in service at the beginning of the next month or November 1st. Okay, so all my depreciation then will start as of November 1st. Again, in my setup, I created an asset classification of computer equipment. And by doing so, that's then going to pull in the depreciation methods that I selected. A question that gets asked in any fixed asset program a lot of times, one that I'll go ahead and answer right now is, yes, we can do multiple books in the Sage fixed assets. So you'll notice here, I've got the book depreciation is being calculated straight line. And then for tax purposes, I'm doing the double declining balance. Okay. So did you see, pretty straightforward, pretty easy to create an asset from the bills. Okay. All right. Next step that we're going to look at in the life of an asset is posting depreciation, right? So I will say that we can set that up automatically. There are the steps that we go through to set that up automatically. The first thing we do is we turn on what are called scheduled jobs, okay? And then we go out there and we enable the automatic posting from depreciation. And I would say that that's probably, hopefully, 99% once we get fixed assets up and running, we'll just go ahead and turn that on. What I typically do in an implementation is I'll typically have users post depreciation manually for the first couple months, One, we can see if it's, running correctly. Is it calculating depreciation correctly? Let's make sure we know how to do that, just so it's a good thing to know. And then if we're comfortable with that depreciation, a lot of times we'll go ahead and turn on the automatically after a couple months of actually posting it manually. Okay. I'm going to go back into my Sage Intacct, go to the post depreciation screen. You'll notice that my dates are a little bit in the past here in my demo company. That's okay. These are all of my depreciation schedules here. If you look down in the lower right, shows that we got over 1,200 depreciation schedules. So what that is, it's the monthly depreciation for each asset that we've set up. I'm going to go ahead and say all I want to see is depreciation for the month of April 2019. Okay, that should then only select those depreciations. All right, I'm going to go ahead and select all of them by checking this box right here, and then go ahead and click on post depreciation. If I want, I can override that posting date. Doesn't happen very often, but I have had in the past a couple times with the current fixed asset module where I needed to actually post a couple months at the same time. So what I did was I overrode those posting dates. I selected a couple months and then said, just go ahead and post all of that depreciation on April 30th, for example. So in that particular case, maybe I had to choose March and April, and then just went ahead and posted them all in April. In this case, I'm not going to override that date. I'm just going to post it normally. And then this depreciation calculation is done in the cloud, or the posting anyway. And so I will at least give you a heads up. If you do use this, it is not going to be instantaneous. It can take up to a little bit of time. I haven't really timed them all, but I know I've seen in the past where sometimes it does take 5 to 10 minutes at least to post that depreciation. So you can always come out here to what's called the bulk action transactions and take a look to see what's queued. Is it in progress? If I do a refresh here, let's see if this is already completed. No, it's still in the queue. So it may take a few minutes for this actually to post that depreciation. Okay, that's not a problem though, because if I go out here to my general ledger and I go out to, in this particular case, the fixed assets book here and take a look at, clicked on the wrong, take a look at my transactions, to be able to see that I actually posted, there's my depreciation expense for March that I had posted previously. Okay, so it does in fact post. Again, keep in mind that it can take a little bit of time to post that entry. Okay, and then finally, I am going to walk through here real quickly at the end of my time here on the disposal of an asset. Okay, again, it's pretty straightforward. If I go back into Intacct and I go back into my asset list, or go into the asset list, I'll go here into my assets, and I'll just choose one of the first ones here that's not been disposed in service. I know these assets for sure have been depreciated through March of 2019. So I'm going to go ahead and all I have to do is select that asset, click the disposal, and I'm going to back this up into, see if it'll let me do it as a 3/31/2019. 3/31/2019. All right, if I had any sale price, I'll just make something up here. I can enter that. What is my disposal type? This was a sale. You'll notice I do have the ability to do a casualty loss, theft, or other. I'm going to make this a sale. If I want to make any comments, sale of asset, I can certainly be more descriptive than that. And here is my, again, I did this in my configuration. All right, so now it's posted. It does have my April depreciation. That can be sometimes a little bit of an issue here if you're trying to do things right away. So that tells me that there we go. So now I have disposed of that asset, and it made the appropriate journal entries based on the net book value compared to the proceeds, any gain loss, and then of course reverse the asset, the accumulated depreciation out of the general ledger. All right, I think that is the end of my time on fixed assets. If you have any questions, if you want to put them in the chat, or as Logan had said earlier, if you want to reach out to any of your consultants that you work with, if you have an interest in Sage fixed assets and want to know more, as always, please reach out. All right, thank you very much. I think Nathan is next.
All right, I'll be talking about intelligent time here. I wanted to start off looking at the existing situation in time entry. So reportedly, currently, employees spend up to a third of every workday on administrative tasks. This is including time entry and recording, which makes up a major part of that. Weekly manual time entry leads to 20% less accurate time picture as compared to constant entry. So going in at the end of the week and entering time tends to be much less accurate than when doing it daily or constantly. This leads to an estimated 50 million hours unreported in the US every day. So with that in mind, Sage Intelligent Time has been shown to bring about 17% increase in hours logged and a 12.9-day increase in the speed at which time is submitted and released. Sage also estimates that Intelligent Time brings in around $10,000 of revenue recovered per employee per year. So those are just all benefits of Intelligent Time. Before getting a little bit further into the topic here, we want to go ahead and do our poll. Yeah, just want to know about your current integration, if you're working with something that is able to go into Intacct or might be in the future. All right, yeah, so majority aren't even integrated currently, and there might be reasons for that. Maybe it doesn't provide you any valuable data, but we're going to look at here with Intelligent Time kind of what additional data we can get there. Certainly the people are working towards that as well, so I can see that 8% there. All right, are we back on the slides now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So we'll kind of get into some key questions on this. So when identifying if Intelligent Time is a good fit for a client, there's some questions we want to ask. The first of which is, what does a typical day look like for your billable employees? So if they're working across a multitude of projects, if they're having to enter their timesheet and submit it daily, all that is stuff we want to know. We really want to get an idea of the complexity of your time entry and how it might relate to your chart of accounts or accounting entries and practices, how that relates to your Intacct configuration, all of that. The more projects an employee works on in a day, typically the better fit your company is going to be for this solution. Not to say that non-billable employee data isn't improved or more accurate with Sage Intelligent Time, as that does still create a more accurate picture of time spent, especially for projects or grant purposes. And it also helps prevent delays in closing because we're looking at a continuous process of time entry here. So it really adds a lot of value to whether you're a service-based company, grant-funded, or you're an organization that wants to track your projects and project costing. Next question down there, how well does integration work between your time solution and your financials? So we saw, I think about 15% of you currently have an integration. So does that system offer an integration? How meaningful is the data that's coming over from that integration? It's all information we want to know. Are you bringing over time simply as your payroll expenses, or do you have more meaningful data you can get from your employees' time? Can you track grants? Can you track projects with your current integration? Is that something you want to implement? You can even use this to go directly into a client or to bill a client. Next question down there, what percent of timesheets are not submitted at period end? Is that going to impact your close? We want to know, how much revenue do you estimate you're not capturing? How accurate is your project pricing? We're trying to get an idea of how closely employee time relates to real-time financial decisions and productivity data. We also want to know how accurately your employees are coding their time to projects, grants, or customers. This ensures that work is recorded into time entry correctly. And really that's the backbone of time entry and billing, is that this information is correct and it's going back out as bills to clients. And how satisfied are you on the next question with your current utilization rate? Again, Sage estimates around $10,000 of revenue can be recaptured annually per employee by utilizing the tools within Intelligent Time. Next question there, how accurate is your billing? So after month end, are you having to reclass time that was submitted due to errors in coding? Are you having to refund or write off invoices to clients due to errors in entry? How much are you losing at the end of the month there? And these are all concerns that can be alleviated with the tools in Intelligent Time's application within Sage Intacct. Let's look a little bit more into functionality here. So the functionality of Intelligent Time, it automatically gathers activities from connected applications. So there is a personal AI time assistant within Intelligent Time that gathers all activity for your employees and it presents it to them for review and submission. So it's pulling in items all across applications, creating suggested time entries, and passing that on to the employee for their review. So they can do that review anywhere. There's a mobile app that allows them to, from their cell phone, review their time and submit it. Even better, the AI time assistant will get smarter with every review, so it's going to save your employees more and more time as it's continued to be used, ensures better coding in their entries, and eliminates human error. So that's suggesting time sheet entries with associated customer, project, or task information. It automates all this data relating to your chart of accounts, to your billing, and enables employees to focus on the customer and completing tasks instead of being concerned with the details of timesheets. So every minute of time is collected. This increases the professional utilization, billable time, and provides a more precise picture of your project profitability within your financial data. So it allows you to enter and approve timesheets through the mobile app. And that helps ensure that timesheets are always in sync with your financials. So for example, your employee can be sitting at the dentist's office. They left maybe early for an appointment, but they still need to get their time in. They can, as they're waiting there, they can work on their time entry. They can submit it. They can make new entries and adjust previous ones before submitting. And all this integration and keeping everything constant provides smart activity cards to easily track work across multiple projects. This enables you to get continuous insight and allows you to close on time, bill on time, and it helps project managers maintain financially minded decisions about their projects using these key metrics, and also allows the organization as a whole to effectively scale. So a bit more about where we can gather information from. So current integrations offer many options for your timesheets automation. We can gather activities from all these connected sources from a calendar. So the AI can look over meetings on connected calendars. There can be multiple calendars connected. It can look at who's invited to those meetings, the actual time that you spent in those meetings, and it can compare to prior meetings, how those were coded, and generate descriptions and coding based off of those other meetings. And even if there's auto-generated notes from a meeting, you can utilize that to generate descriptions as well. It can look at emails. So emails to or from clients can be tied to their timesheet counterpart as powered by the machine learning. So it's looking at who's this email addressed to, who's receiving it, what the content of that email is, and it's using that again to fill out descriptions and coding on entries, suggesting how much time that email would have taken to write up and what the content of that was. You can also look across your different desktop applications. So software such as CRMs, your Workday planning or scheduling apps, it can even look at browser activity to be tracked and pulled for entries. And this is all using that Intelligent Time AI. a bit more about the AI. So through those connections, the AI is able to learn and suggest time coding and billing options as tied to your Intacct environment's configuration. So however we have your chart of accounts set up, however you're configured to be either billing back through grants, billing directly to customers, we can have those timesheet entries auto-coded across a range of items, say customers, projects, tasks, even grants within Intacct. Really, you can integrate to any portion of your chart of accounts using this. It also allows for quick and timely data to be released by employees. And once approved, it's immediately available in Intacct's financials. So once that time is entered, submitted, and approved, it's going directly into your financials, giving you real-time data and allows it to be reconciled and synchronized with your financials in real time. Kind of what helps with that is the mobile apps. So the real cherry on top of Intelligent Time's accessibility and ease of use to employees is the app. So this offers on-the-go time entry. As mentioned, employees can enter, review, and submit their time directly from their phones. So they have true mobile entry. There's notes, description, coding that can all be updated, added, submitted through the app. You can take pictures of receipts. You can add any kind of support you would need directly from your phone. It's fully integrated with Intacct, so it pulls entries directly into the applicable application in Intacct, creates invoices, bills time expenses to grants or projects as determined by dimensional coding. So it's looking at dimensions within that coding there, but it also knows what to suggest for those based off of prior entries. And that's from the AI suggestion. So that's ensuring that all data is assigned the required dimension coding. It helps also to review and inform new employees on entry coding practices and ensure that every minute is accounted for appropriately. So the AI is looking every minute of the day, checking what you're doing, what meeting you're in, what email you're writing, and helps to assign that to a time code. Really, that is an overview of the Intelligent Time there. No, there might be quite a few questions with that, so please reach out if there's more information or you want to discuss how company needs might be filled with Sage Intelligent Time. I think we want to take a little bit possibly here for some questions.
All right. So we do have a couple questions, Nathan.
Okay.
The first one is, can I add receipts or photographs as support to an entry after posting it?
Yes, yep. So you are able to edit things as well. The approver could, similar to other approvals in Intacct, could also send it back. Say, hey, you didn't add support to this. This needs a receipt. I'm sending it back to the employee. They can then add it and resubmit that.
So we just had a person asking, is Sage Intelligent Time an additional purchase or part of the core accounting? And they are asking for the purchasing module as well. Is that an additional expense or something that comes with the software that they have?
I can answer that. So purchasing is not an additional expense. That's included in the basic subscription. Intelligent Time is included with either separately, so you can add it separately as its own expense, or you can add it with grant tracking and billing or time and expense as well. So it can be included with other subscriptions, but it's not included with the standard.
All right, very good. Brad, we had a fixed asset question. Someone is asking, how does the fixed asset solution handle a single sale price for multiple assets being disposed?
That's a good question. I would say, look, I'm going to try to, off the top of my head here, a little bit, we certainly circle back to see if there's a way to do multiple assets. My initial answer would be to say you could always allocate that purchase price to the various assets, right? I mean, that would be certainly one way to do it. I would probably need to do a little checking to see if there's a way to actually do what I think the question is, can I just put in the single, let's just say again, $10,000 and then say it would, check more than one asset, right? And say they were all disposed. So I would need to take a look to see if we can do it that way or not. Again, at a minimum, I would say you could do that allocation yourself, on an asset by asset basis if necessary.
Very good. I think that's it for questions. We'll have a short break here. We're going to start at 3 o'clock with the Donor Perfect as a nonprofit fundraising tool. So if everybody wants to grab a cup of coffee, use the restroom, whatever, and come back here at 3 o'clock, then we'll have our 3 afternoon Sage add-on solutions presentation.
And I'll do a few other housekeeping items here. If anyone is unable to stick around for the rest of the user group, let me share my screen here. There is a survey that will pop up as you close out of the user group. And we ask that you take that survey. It takes about 2 minutes. And we'll enter you to win a $25 Amazon gift card. I know everybody uses Amazon these days. $25 can go towards anything you might purchase there. Again, 2 minutes, doesn't take long at all, and you'll get entered to that. Anybody who might be dropping off and not sticking around, again, our team here on the screen, feel free to email us, give us a call if you have any questions, follow up from today's user group. We do hope that you all stick around, and starting with Donor Perfect right at 3 o'clock, we'll begin. Good presentation there, and then follow that up with Ramp and Martis to round out the afternoon. So we'll be back here shortly, right before 3, and hope you all stay with us. Okay, everyone. It is now 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so we'll go ahead and get started here. Our client base is filled with many nonprofits, so we thought it was only fitting to have a donor and fundraising solution presented here. So if you hear Sage Intacct fundraising and or Donor Perfect, they are one and the same. And we have Joel here this afternoon to share all the great information. Joel, without further ado.
Thanks, Luke, and thanks everyone for joining today. My name is Joel Stevens, and I manage the relationship between Sage and Donor Perfect on our side. So I'll be demonstrating for us today everything related to the Donor Perfect component, online donation forms, some reporting, some of the views within the system, and the configurability within the system as well. And certainly, as you have questions throughout our demonstration today, please post those in the chat, and we'll get to those at the end. One disclaimer, I mentioned I am located in Western Colorado, and we are having historically bad weather, so if we experience any lag, I apologize on behalf of our crazy Western Colorado weather. It's impacting my internet speeds a little bit today. But let's go ahead and get started. So this is your homepage within Donor Perfect. And again, we can focus on any specific metric that you'd like to focus on. It could be related to specific funds. Maybe it's a marketing campaign, total giving. And I always refer to this as almost a dashboard light. So we can get some of those major metrics that we're choosing to focus on as an organization, and then get clarity into how we're performing against those metrics. One other thing that you'll note here is any upcoming or pending outreach. So these can be reminders. And I'll show you when we jump into a constituent record as well that you have the ability to sync those with external calendar platforms as well. If you live in Outlook or on an iPhone or in the Google workspace, you can sync very easily to external calendars as well. One of the big things for us as an organization is the idea of syncing with industry leaders, integrating with industry leaders so that we can help make your life much easier. Okay. The first thing that I'm going to show before we actually get into a donor record will be kind of the flow of funds from one of our donation forms. So I'll pull that up real quickly, and I have absolutely all of our functionality turned on for the sake of a demo, just so that you can see some of the things you can do. Certainly don't have to have thermometers and these little social proof pop-ups. but we do want you to know that they're available to you. Now, you can create as many of these forms as you'd like. If you'd like to have one form per fund or one form per marketing campaign, and you can also have one major form that links to several different campaigns as well, whatever your preference would be. And again, this is going to embed directly into your website. So we'll choose to give $1,000 today. It lets us know that we're in the top 2%. And you'll notice here that the fees, when it asks us to help cover costs and fees, it's suggesting an amount that's a little bit higher than what the processing rates would be. We've implemented some technology called Smart Donor Covers Cost. The idea being that especially in 2025, we realize as nonprofits that every penny that we get counts. And so we just have this little notice that says, hey, when you choose to give more, you're not just covering the processing rates, but it helps us cover these various other needs within the organization. Certainly, some organizations choose not to do that. You can set a flat amount as well. If you'd like to have it just set to what the highest rate would be for like an Amex processing rate, you can do that very easily on the back end as well. And we can choose to change the amount that we'd like to cover as another option. So today I'll choose not to cover anything. Now I'm capturing this information. If this person is already in the system as a constituent, it's automatically going to link this gift to their record. If they're a new donor, it will automatically create a new donor record for them within the system. So no manual work to follow up here. You'll also notice that we will be seeing an automated thank you letter that will be going out. And the internet security protocols have made this. So my thank you has been generated, and you won't experience that in a normal giving platform because I'm in a test environment. It's asking for these double checks on security. One other thing that I'll show you before we jump into the system. People can also start their own fundraisers. I always contrast this versus like a Facebook fundraiser. Certainly, we're grateful for any place that generates revenue for us as an organization. But the problem with Meta's privacy policies is that it limits our ability to see who actually gave. So Luke could go out and start his own fundraiser and have 100 people donate, and I would have no idea who those people are. Whereas on this platform, we get all that donor information loaded into the system, and I can now engage them as potential future donors as well. Jumping back into the system, get back to our homepage here. Let's take a look at Roger's record. Roger's the donor record that I used for that last gift. Top of the page, you'll notice we have a donor score that's based around engagement, how recently, how often, and how much they give. Last gift, total number of gifts, total dollars given. Little narrative around who Roger is as it relates to us as an organization and also in their personal life, because we like to have high value conversations that are normal, not just regarding us as an organization, but certainly it's nice to be able to engage with them on a personal level as well. Donor Perfect is highly configurable, and you're not going to need to employ an IT professional to make changes to the system. We have something called a smart screen designer. If you don't like the layout, or there are fields that you don't need or fields that you feel like you'd like to add, it's very easy to go into the back end, reorder these fields. You can choose if it's a drop down, a text field, date field, all those things can be chosen as you're setting up new menu items in the back. Any place that you see these plus signs are opportunities to create new codes, which codes then, of course, become filter points as I'm running reports or creating mailing lists or my email lists as well. And I'll show you those here in a moment. And then kind of a comprehensive analysis of this person's giving history. Now, this could be an individual, it can be an organization, government entity, foundation. We can track all that. Top of the profile by constituent type. And again, if you have a different type of organization or individual that you're engaging with, you can add that code very easily. Jumping into the giving history. So whenever I see this alphanumeric string in the gift narrative, I know that that came from one of our online forms, credit card gift, and so I'm able to see a lot about it directly from there. We can also track soft credit. So if we're talking about donor advice funds, employee match, those can all be tracked here as well. And I can see the link to the organization that actually gave the financial component, but also certainly want to be able to engage with this person for initiating the donation. Certainly many donors give large amounts through DAF, so we want to be able to engage and thank them as well and continue to convey the mission effectively. If we're looking at more of a manual giving process, so perhaps I received a check, you can see those populate here. And I can point to funds. What's the GL, solicitation? Are they a monthly donor? And one of the nice things is if I happen to get a gift, manually receive a check, if they have a pending pledge, so they have a recurring gift that they give every month, it'll also give you the option to apply part of this donation to that recurring gift if they've requested you to do so. I can charge them instantly from the screen. If we've got a card on file, I can thank them directly from the screen as well. And again, split gifts so they can go to different funds and also link to different donors or institutions within the system. Moving back to our main screen, pledges are just recurring gifts, so you'll see those noted as well, the amount, the frequency, and you can set up different frequencies on your online donation form as well. Very easy to set up a donation form. In fact, it takes just a matter of a few minutes. Contacts for us, in the context, we're thinking of constituents, donors, organization. We look at a contact as any sort of touch point. So anytime I'm interacting with a donor or an organization, I set up this contact record. Some of these will be generated automatically. We have an integration which is included with this system with Constant Contact. If they're enrolled in an email campaign, perhaps they subscribe to our newsletter, we'll be able to see those automatically as well, and I can search for those by searching for Constant Contact in this field. And it'll give me a little bit of information related to the performance. Has it bounced? It was sent but never opened. It was opened. And certainly if I want a little bit more detail, I can jump into Constant Contact and look at the performance of each campaign. You can also, as I mentioned, sync these with external calendars. So if you prefer to operate in a different system or you like to have that little bit of backup to make sure that you're not forgetting anything, you can certainly sync these reminders with your external calendar of choice. If I jump into one of these contact records, we can see who it's assigned to, and you can certainly assign it to other people within the organization. So if you're in a capacity where you're delegating these responsibilities, you have specific people that speak or have relationship with specific types of donors, you can assign those to different people, or perhaps out of the office, for whatever reason, you can assign it to whoever you'd like to within the system. A little bit of narrative around that. There also is some grant management component. Certainly, Intacct has a fantastic grant management capability, but it's nice to be able to track what this conversation is related to as well within your CRM. Some moves management to create ability to build SOPs around the way that we're going to interact with people based on the type of relationship. You also have the ability to track volunteer hours within the system. I can see those here, and those will populate in a calculated field on their main bio page. I can create links to other people, to organizations. So he works for this organization. Friends and family can be linked here as well. Just allows me to maximize relationship potentially. Janice is someone that we'd like to engage with. The relationship with Roger allows us to have more opportunity to engage with that donor as well. And then Donor Perfect can also account for seasonal addresses. So perhaps in my part of the world, we have a lot of people that either leave for the snow or come for the snow, and you'd be able to track those seasonal addresses. If you're sending paper mail, newsletters, things like that, the system will automatically default to the address based on the time of year. Moving along to receipting. So certainly organizations still receive cash transactions, stocks. Not everything is going to come through one of our online donation forms. So we can process very easily. You can also set up contact preferences, whether they prefer to receive paper receipting or they'd like to see an email receipt. That can all be done in one fell swoop. If I am printing paper receipts with our integration to Office, it'll generate a Word document and you can then personalize and print those letters for mail. For the email component, perhaps we've taken several donations today, and this will cover both pledges, so again, recurring donations or one-time gifts. We can generate all these at once. It'll give me a little bit of a preview related to what that's going to look like. And now all my receipts have been processed. You can also do the same thing for an annual consolidated email. Okay. Moving along to our constant contact integration. So again, part of our philosophy here has been to partner with industry leaders. Donor Perfect is not a financial suite, so we integrate with Sage. And we've never decided that we wanted to be a marketing platform, so we have the partnership with Constant Contact. So to conceptualize, I flag people. You can use any of the fields that you've seen on a donor record to filter towards a specific range of donors. So for this example, we're going to use board members current and former. And now that list will live within Constant Contact. And if we go to this lists page here, we'll see the same list that we saw in Donor Perfect. So I can now create segments, prepare for an event, anything that you'd like to do, newsletter subscribers, all those can be tracked. And again, bilateral integration, so this data is pushing back and forth between the two systems. We also have the benefit of having a very good marketing team that's been working at this. Of course, Donor Perfect's been in the nonprofit space for over 40 years. We have an understanding of the best ways to communicate. So these are nonprofit specific templates that are all available to our clients in Donor Perfect partnered accounts. They're able to check deliverability, subject line performance, click rate. There's even a heat map so you can see where people are clicking within your emails to see what's performing and why it's performing the way that it is. And then lastly, Constant Contact has really evolved into a real media and marketing hub, so you can also manage social media directly from Constant Contact, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. If I have an upcoming event, I can create an entire campaign leading up to that event, and the system will automatically send these emails and social media posts directly from Constant Contact in the frequency that you choose. Coming back into Donor Perfect, certainly one of the most important things for us as an organization, especially as the industry has changed in the last year, really having deep data-driven insights into what's performing, where we need help. And so everything that we do is driven by good analytics. Users will have the ability to have their own customized dashboard. So this dashboard will have tiles related to me in a fundraising capacity. Certainly on the finance team, it could look differently. Executives might be looking for different tiles as well, and you'll have access to all those. And of course, can drill down and go directly into the reports that we're pulling data from. And of course, the organizational dashboard is extremely important. Always like to see where are we at with our annual giving, what's our retention, and those metrics we'll post here. So this actually is indicative of a trend that we've seen in the nonprofit world. Our faithful donors are increasingly faithful and giving more than they ever have, but these people on the fringes are churning at a higher rate. So I definitely want to have some insight into what's driving that. We can see retention over the last few years. So some of my favorite reports as I jump into the report center, Donor Perfect does come preloaded with over 70 nonprofit specific reports, classic reports that you've seen before, like last year but not this year, or some year but not this year, are all available. You can certainly create custom reports very easily as well through our report builder. But to give you an idea of a few of these reports, again, the comprehensive donor analysis from a high-level view at an organizational level gives great insight. So how many active donors do I have in this current year? How many did I have in the prior year? And you can see that churn. We were pretty consistent over a 2-year period. This year's fallen off a little bit. Total revenue is up, which is encouraging, but certainly we want to make sure to find a way to retain those people that may have fallen through the cracks over the past year. Retention, how many new donors do we have? People that have reactivated, which is certainly a goal as well. If we look at a last year but not this year report, the sidebar will give me some surface level filtering options as well. And I can see that there's a filter in place, so I'll go ahead and remove that. Now run a report based on the people that gave last year, but I haven't seen a donation from in 2025. Obviously, you can change fiscal year dates as well based on what your internal calendar looks like. So now I have visibility into several pages of people that gave to us previously, but we've not seen a donation from this fiscal year. And certainly any place that you see the hyperlink, we can drill down to look directly at that organization or individual and create a marketing plan, create an outreach plan based around re-engaging these people. Very quickly, I'll show you what it looks like to build some of these filters. Use a classic Boolean filter process. I'll clear out an existing filter. Now I can create compound filters, single run filters, and certainly you have the ability to save as many of these as you would like to. But I'm going to create a new one-time use filter. We'll just search for any gift greater than or equal to $500 over the last calendar year. Again, you can get as granular, you can layer as many of these filters as you'd like to. So it could be left-handed dog lovers in Pittsburgh, but certainly have the ability to get as detailed and granular as you'd like. If I anticipate using this filter in the future, this is the screen at which I would do that. And again, it becomes a data point that I can use to create mailing lists, run reports, all those things. So these filters can be used across multiple levels within the system. And of course, not everyone is going to want to view the data within the system, so we can certainly export to an Excel or Word or PDF or create a custom template with specific fields related to this output. Send it to other people in the organization. You will have access to 100 report automations, so I can run 100 unique reports in the system automatically in whatever frequency you choose. If it's a daily thing that you'd like to see in your inbox, you don't want to have to go through this process, you can do that. And again, based on the fact that I've built a custom report with a custom filter, I could certainly save that to use in the future. You'll also have the ability to enter gifts in batch, and this will be the last screen that we hang out in for a moment. Got a fundraiser related to an event. Choose the number of gifts or batch count, total amount, and it will reconcile as we go through. So if I get a bunch of checks during Giving Tuesday, I can then create this batch, assign the template. Again, if there were any link, I can link those gifts. If this is going to be a recurring gift, I can track that as well, generate the soft credits. One of the nice things is as well, if they have an outstanding pledge or recurring gift, it will highlight that here and give us the ability to potentially apply a portion of the gift to a pledge so that we never have the challenge of those recurring gifts falling off. also have access to our Learning Center. We have walkthroughs, which will literally take you step by step in the system on how to perform a task. I'm always a teach a man to fish kind of guy, so this literally is going to teach me. I've got a new member of my team. I want them to learn how to add a gift. The system can walk them through that process rather than me having to sit over their shoulder and say, now click on add a new gift. Donor Perfect will do all the heavy lifting for you as you bring new people onto the team or want to learn how to perform new tasks. And that is a general intro to Donor Perfect. Certainly, if anyone would like to meet with us for a more detailed walkthrough, we're happy to do that. But I'll open it up now for questions.
Yeah, so Joel, I think one area the Sage users, they're used to, they have different types of users in Intacct. What does that look like in Donor Perfect? So would there be a certain amount that would come with a normal subscription?
You actually have unlimited users, but you can change access. So you can set up profiles, read only, edit only, certain screens that they can't see. We've even got organizations that will limit the funds. So a specific user can only see specific funds related to their capacity within the organization as well. So both user security settings and unlimited users.
Great. Awesome. Also, if an organization were to move to Donor Perfect, what's a typical implementation look like from a time frame? How long would it take for them to get up and running?
It really varies depending upon the system that they're coming from. We have, because we've been doing this for a long time, there are certain competitive products that we've built out more of an automated import process. Those can be as little as 30 days. Typically, for a more robust implementation between training, field mapping, so that we're certain that everything from the existing system is mapped to the correct or corresponding field, or if we need to build a field within Donor Perfect, you'd be looking closer to 90 to 120 days to be live.
Okay. And then looks like we got one more for you here. As far as support goes, what options do you have for that? So once they get live on the system, this person wants to know, would they be talking with a live person if they had questions?
Absolutely. So you can actually, from within the system, I can engage chat support. You'll have access to phone support and email support as well. Certainly we know different people prefer to engage at different levels. 8 to 8 support hours Eastern Standard Time. And typically you're actually speaking with someone domestically. All of our support is domestic and Donor Perfect employees. Average length of tenure on those teams is over 5 years, and you're talking to somebody in less than 3 minutes.
Awesome. That's all we've got for questions at the moment.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Joel. Appreciate you showing Donor Perfect.
Thanks for having me.
All right. And anybody out there, if you want more information, like Joel said, we'll have his information. And if you want to reach out to us and get you in contact, by all means, we'll make sure that we'll get you any information necessary on that front. Up next, we're going to present Ramp. So again, they're another Sage Intacct marketplace partner. And Adam, I will turn it over to you whenever you are ready.
Good afternoon, everyone. Am I coming through clearly, and can you see my screen? All right. Always good to see several names from the past that I've worked with, so thank you for joining us here this afternoon. I'm going to be highlighting a third-party solution called Ramp, and this is one that we've really grown to recommend and have a lot of delight in working with, an easy group to work with, and DWD also internally supports this solution. So several of our consultants that were talking about the different Sage topics today also are Ramp certified and can train and implement and support this product as well. And I'm going to just kind of go over some information here, and then we'll dive into the software themselves. think of ramp as really any spending outside of payroll costs. And probably the best way to demonstrate this is kind of through a visual. And one of the things about ramp is it has kind of on the bleeding edge of machine learning and AI and some of the things you probably hear about in the news. It's really just kind of a front runner and growing quite quickly here. And so kind of the orange boxes that you see, it's all encompassing in terms of what it's able to cover. And one of the things we here at DWD try to do are try to find solutions that consolidate the back office components and bring a lot of things more under one umbrella. And ramp happens to be one of those. So it can handle credit card spending. It can handle employee expense reimbursements. For example, if you're not doing that through the payroll system, it can also handle AP automation, and it can also handle procurement and approval routing. And so ramp integrates with both the payroll HR system in a lot of cases and also Sage Intacct. So for example, if you hire a new employee and they need to be issued a card, a lot of that will kind of flow right through. And it is a bi-directional API integration. So any coding that you have in Sage or vendors that you have in Sage is going to appear backwards into ramp. And so a lot of different areas that it can cover as it feeds into the general ledger system there. One of the main things when I talk with customers is receipt management, more or less, and managing all of the incoming documents from different managers and personnel and those kinds of things, and getting those approved and documented. And really what ramp helps alleviate is more or less real-time capture. So someone can take a picture of a receipt on their phone, mobile device. It'll automatically read that receipt. It can read names, dollar amounts, dates, and match those in the system. And then they can get text messages back, basically coding the transaction in real time, or they can use the app, and emails can sync over as well. And so it's just a much more efficient way to capture that rather than waiting until the end of the week or the end of the month to make sure who's turned in what. And people lose things and that kind of thing, and just can be a real pain point for organizations. So I'll talk a little bit more about the controls in place, but that's just one area that it can help with. The other thing is not only just for credit cards, but again, think all spending outside of personnel costs or payroll. If you charge any transactions on their credit card platform, they have today a 1.5 cash back reward. So if you can get routine bills, even in accounts payable, paid on their cards, the majority of the spending on that can be quite a bit of savings and cash back on probably typical spending that you're already doing today through maybe check cutting or ACH. So a lot of nice features there. And this is kind of an example. Maybe you spend $1 million a year on non-payroll costs, and that'd be $15,000 a year savings, and often enough to cover the ramp platform and more in terms of costs and the ROI on the software. So I'm going to toggle here into the software, and let's take a look at it. So I don't have the mobile app pulled up here this afternoon, but you kind of saw that in the screenshots. There's a lot of content online for it as well. But it is a cloud-based solution, and quite a bit of reporting capabilities out here to see what the spending trends are, who's spending most of the money within the organization. Are there certain departments that are spending more than others? A lot of things, and you can drill down into those and see some intelligence based on those as well. That's probably kind of standard what people would expect, but I'm going to kind of dive into the trenches a little bit more here and talk primarily about spending management on credit cards and the accounts payable automation and some of the expense tracking as well. So I'm going to go into manage spend here, and there are different ways that individuals can use their credit cards. You can have a physical plastic card, or you can actually have a virtual card as well, and employees can have more than one depending upon their spending needs. And so kind of coming down here, you might have an employee where you set up a specific card that says just for gas purchases only, they can spend $100 per month. And so you can create parameters around what they can use that card for, how much they can spend, how often it renews, and that kind of thing. You can see if there are any declined transactions, or recent activity, and so forth. But if I come up here to the top, I'm going to go ahead, and what we find in this system is the card control is very granular, and something that we haven't seen in a lot of their solutions is the spending controls. So for example, I can come out and I could say this vendor should only be used at certain gas merchants, Marathon Gas, BP, and so forth. You could have those spelled out here, and then that's the only place that that card is going to work. Okay. So people can get their credit cards transactions through snapping on the mobile receipt. You can turn off cards and disable them. You can issue new cards all from the platform directly. If it is a virtual card, they will get it nearly immediately. And from an accounting perspective on the back end, you can set up other rules to say, do they have their receipts turned in? Are they submitting things on time? And for example, if Adam isn't on top of things and after 5 business days I don't have my receipts turned in, it might temporarily turn off that credit card to be used any further until I get those turned in. And so you can kind of see out here what the receipts are, what the attachments, and what's available. And just kind of as an example, if I come down to this restaurant purchase, furthermore, I can have users have to require to fill in certain fields. So I took a picture of the receipt. In this case, it's saying, hey, I have to add in a description. It needs to go through an approval process. And maybe they need to fill in certain fields that are linked to Sage Intacct. And in this case, I'm not filling them all in. I'm just saying they need to tag the accounting category field, for example. Okay. In addition to that, if there are certain things that I'm always going to be in the same department or the same class or something like that, I can default some of that coding to make life a little bit easier. And then there's a full audit trail down below, and I can add comments in here on transactions as they're being submitted within the organization. So the accounting team on the back end sees all visibility across all cards. The employees and the managers see only the information that's relevant to them as it's processing through their workflow. Okay. So they can do their credit card transactions. Maybe you don't have many credit cards in your organizations, but you do have people that do reimbursements or travel or those kinds of things. I can come out and submit reimbursements in here. Okay. I can see which ones maybe have receipts, which ones have been paid, and so forth. So I can come up and say, request a reimbursement. I could attach a receipt directly in the system by dragging and dropping. Okay. Or I could say, maybe this is for travel. And so I've got mileage that I'm traveling for a conference or an on-site plant meeting. One of the things we like about this as well is the ability to just put in addresses and have it read Google Maps, for example. So maybe I'm traveling from Columbus, Ohio to Indianapolis. And as soon as I put in those locations, it'll automatically go out, find the Google map, the shortest length. I can put in the rates and so forth, add in any notes. Are there other people that were with me on the trip that traveled along? And I can go ahead and then submit that off. And you'll notice there are a couple of other charges that I have already in my queue from that little trip that I had, and would be submitting, to then my manager. So a lot of things we can do there kind of as well. We can set spending limits on cards like I showed. You can limit by vendors, and you can set up individuals to have to turn in receipts on time. The other area is for travel. If you want to book travel through here and you have any reward programs through certain hotels, you can link those up and earn points on that. You can book flights, you can book rental cars, you can have Uber expenses fed directly in when you use Uber, and email the receipt to you, for example, automatically appear here in Ramp and so forth, and so you can come out and use this. And behind the scenes, it's using a travel site that most of us would be aware of to accommodate the best pricing on that front. Okay, but you could then come out and basically schedule out a trip for all the needs for a conference or something like that, have it all booked directly in the system and know what those costs are and have them approved and so forth. The other thing is, let's say I'm going to travel from Chicago to New York, for example. It's smart enough that based upon my policies, if, for example, it says when I travel, I need to always make sure that people are choosing economy and not premium or first class or different things like that, it'll go out and tell me here on this grid which things are out of policy from a spending standpoint. Maybe I shouldn't have any room upgrades at the hotel or those kinds of things. I can do all of that and kind of see what's out here and book it directly on my Ramp application. So that's pretty straightforward. Where we see people using Ramps, particularly as an area of what we call AP automation or bill pay out here. And so, again, trying to get to a more paperless environment, I can attach documents out here. And there are different ways, again, I can get documents in through the mobile. I can drag and drop, or I can bring in transactions through emails. And so think of an AP inbox where vendors are sending things directly to me. I can come out here and I can have it auto attach invoices, have it read it, code it, and then route it for approval directly in the system. And one of the things that is more unique to Ramp than other solutions is it is multi-entity supported. So as several of you know, Sage Intacct accommodates multiple entities. And so I can have basically different inboxes or one platform to manage all of that spending across multiple companies. Okay. So let's go ahead and kind of look at a few things here. I'm going to grab several transactions. I'm going to drag them onto my screen. They're going to go ahead and process. And now what Ramp is doing in real time is it's reading those PDF attachments. It's indexing or coding them. It's also doing a few other things, like maybe there's a duplicate, so I don't want to pay it twice. Okay. Maybe there's certain information missing, but I'm going to go ahead and click into a transaction here. And there's a copy of the invoice. Okay. So I can see it might be a little bit small in the webinar here, but I see that it read the invoice number, it read the invoice date, it read the due date, automatically transcribed the summary of the invoice lines for me as well. I could match this to an open purchase order if I do purchasing through here. And then this little lightning bolt comes along and says, okay, we read each of the individual lines. Here's the verbiage that we extracted. Here's the dollar amounts, the quantity, and those types of things. And then our accounting fields are going to come directly from Sage Intacct, the dimensions. So in this case, I've got a general ledger code. Maybe I've got to indicate a department, whether it's a billable, a certain class. And maybe I say I want to use that in the future so it remembers the next time it sees an invoice from this vendor, go ahead and pre-code it. Now, it incorporates machine learning, so it's going to kind of do some of that automatically. The other unique thing to Ramp here is maybe I want Ramp to be more of a detailed ledger, for example, with the line items of the invoice, but when I process them in accounts payable, I don't need to see all of that. I could just say I'm just going to pay the invoice total amount. I can say collapse up here, then it just truncated all the lines and just resubtotaled it for me. Okay, and then this would be the only information that pushes over into Sage Intacct. Okay. Now, the beauty of this platform is Ramp will also eliminate the need for printing checks, having stamps, mailing, stuffing envelopes, that whole bit. They include as a part of their platform free ACH transactions, and also they will disperse paper checks if a vendor opts to be paid that way out of the system as well. Now you'll notice down here at the bottom, they've actually updated it to 1.5%, but you can pay by card for AP transactions as well, and then that would apply towards any cash back. Okay. The way it works with Sage is when you go ahead and say create the bill, it'll link over as a AP transaction. When it's scheduled to be paid, it'll go ahead and then sync the payment over to Intacct as well and mark it as a closed item on the AP aging report. Okay. And then I can add in, further descriptions and those kinds of things. And then down below, I have my approval process. And so I'll show that in just a moment, but there's several different layers and pretty complex workflows that we can create out here. You can have multiple approvers or a first come, first serve approver, we call it. You can kind of reorder things. If I'm an administrator, maybe I need to add someone and deviate from the normal path. Again, I'm logged in as a super user, so you have to be cognizant of that. And then the other thing is, up here at the top, maybe there are other attachments like quotes or plans for something or pictures or whatever it might be. I can associate other documents along with this transaction. Okay, so I can schedule it when to be paid. So let's close out of that. These would then get submitted in that approval process, and let's just kind of walk through what those workflows kind of look like out here. So under the approvals tab, I can come out into edit mode, and this is what we oftentimes help customers with, to think through the logic of how these are to be routed and how to set it up in an efficient manner. But maybe a little intimidating at first glance here, but pretty user-friendly in terms of how we add steps and route things. So in this case, it's saying, anybody can submit transactions, and the first step that it goes is to the person that has the vendor relationship, and it could be any of those three people. I can create conditions out here. If it's greater than a certain amount, maybe it needs to have more approvers. So in this case, it needs to go a level up, and it could be any individual. It could be a particular person or all of them. So multiple people might need to approve transactions. Okay. If it's greater than $15,000, for example, it needs to go up to the executive level, and someone in finance needs to approve that. And so you can kind of add these steps, gets pretty granular all the way through. You can also have it where it's designed by the account coding. So maybe it's dependent upon the department code or the entity code or something in the chart of account structure that they select that controls how those types of things get created. The other thing that's kind of neat within the system, at least when you're setting it up, because it goes pretty quick, is I can create a sample transaction. So I could say, okay, I've got a lot of different workflow paths that things could get passed through. Maybe I come along and I say, okay, I'm going to submit a $10,000 transaction, and it needs to be, Bill's going to submit it. It's going to be for Amazon, and we're going to pay it via check. I'm going to go ahead and click submit here. It runs through the process and says, oh, it skipped a step. There's something in this setup that isn't accurate. Maybe I need to go back and address something there. Okay. It's a really good visual. And this workflow capability is available not only in accounts payable bills, but is available in credit card transactions and receipts and expense reimbursements. Okay. So that's all available and out there. There is vendor management available out here, so I can store additional information related to vendors, how they prefer to be paid, and those kinds of things. And then all of that pushes over to Sage Intacct. The last item is there is a treasury functionality. So if you've got your operating cash in a local bank and you're not earning as much on it and you prefer to pay out of Ramp's treasury accounts. You can earn a little bit there, and then they incentivize you on paying through their platform as well. Okay. So I think I have a polling question at this point. Sherry, is that available?
Yes. So the question reads, do you currently use AP and credit card automation? And we'll keep it up for about 30 seconds for everyone to submit an answer.
So some people do through their bank. We see that oftentimes. Certain banks have certain platforms that you can process that through. Quite a few people, about 65%, want to learn more about that. So again, feel free to comment that in the questions or the consultant that you're working with here on our D2B team, and we're happy to provide more information. The other thing to just kind of keep in mind here is there could be people on this webinar that maybe they volunteer with other organizations beyond just the company they work for. This platform that you're seeing here isn't just built for Sage. It can work for other solutions as well, QuickBooks and other things that are out there, and we can help on that front as well. So be happy to keep that in mind.
Very good.
Sherry, any questions coming through?
Yes, we do have one. A person's asking, when does the AP automation transaction hit the Sage GL?
Yeah, when you're over in the accounting area and you're doing the bill approvals, there's a step up here that will tell you when you can go ahead and sync those. So once they're fully approved and the transaction is coded and complete, is what I would call it, then you sync it over to Sage Intacct. So it could be whatever frequency that occurs throughout the day. Could be one time a week.
Okay. Anybody else has questions, just submit them by chat and we'll go ahead and read them to the group. Otherwise, that's all I see right now.
I think that's all I had. Yep. So I know I'm a few minutes early, so if there's the next vendor to share, I'm happy to hang on for any other questions, or else I'll pass it back over to Luke.
We got one more question. So one came in that is asking, so do you have to manually sync?
The payments, once they're dispersed, automatically sync over to Sage, but you have control as to when you want AP bills to be batched and pushed over. And I would say it is an automatic, but it's not a, meaning it automatically pushes over. There's no export import file or anything like that. But you have control as to when you want to click the go button and to send them over. Part of that is for review purposes is to make sure everything is accurate before it's then finalized and posted into the general ledger system.
Very good. All right, that is it for questions. Luke, I'll go ahead and make you.
This is Luke. I may. Looks like we got one more question that popped in here. So, if clients of ours are creating vendors in Intacct, what does that look like on the Ramp side? Do they have to create vendors there as well?
Sorry, I heard some of that. The question is where do vendors get built or reside?
Yeah, so I think the question is based around if you created an Intacct or Ramp, do you have to also create it in one or the other?
No, those are both integrated. Normally, you would typically build the new vendor record in Ramp, and it will automatically sync over to Sage in that case. If you're an existing Sage Intacct customer and you deploy Ramp, then we can bring over the current vendor list into Ramp.
All right. Thank you, Adam. Next up, we're going to present on Martis. So anyone who has attended past user groups may have seen Martis or heard about Martis, but anybody who has not, we'll kind of go over a quick overview, and then I will share the software itself. So much like Adam said, with our team being RAMP certified and we can help implement and train organizations on it, we are also certified and trained on Martis. So if anybody is interested in a new budgeting solution, Martis is by far our preferred solution, and so we gladly help you with any more information or talk about your current budgeting process. So let me jump right into it here. Just a couple slides. So for those of you who don't know anything about Martis, it's a more sophisticated solution than the budget module within Intacct. Some of you, depends your current budget process, some of you may have it in Excel and then load it into Intacct, or you may be using another solution. What Martis's strengths are in a variety of things, and you'll notice the 4 items here on my screen. Budgeting. What we try to do is ditch the spreadsheets. So if you are currently inputting everything into Excel, and then you have multiple tabs, maybe color coordinated at the bottom, we try to do away with that and try to automate or improve the process as much as possible. Another area that Martis is strong in is personnel budgeting. So depending on how you do that today, sometimes that's a little more difficult, and organizations want to get more into the granular level than maybe they currently have the ability to. So Martis allows you to budget by position and also limit who can see what information, because that's always a concern is, well, I don't want certain people noticing or seeing what someone makes within the organization. So that is an important part of Martis. Only the people who should see that information will see it, and it is a separate section, which I'll show you here a little bit more on once I get into the software. Reporting, they have great dashboards and reports. They even have a custom report writer. So if the canned or reports and dashboards out of the box don't provide you with what you're looking for, the custom report writer can create that for you. The nice thing about the reporting in Martis is it syncs information from Intacct. So if you have users who are unique to Martis, but you don't necessarily want them to have access to Intacct, nor want to pay for it in another user just because all they need to see is budget, and maybe they want to see or need to see budget versus actual reporting and whatnot. The beauty of it is you can keep their access to strictly Martis, and they'll be able to see actual data from Intacct to compare. So they'll be able to see all of that while they don't require access to Sage Intacct. That eliminates confusion. Well, what do I log into Intacct for, whereas Martis? So we see that all the time where some users only have Martis access but can see the actual information that flows into it. Fourth and final area is forecasting. So if you have multi-year projections or you have specific scenarios that you want to budget for or plan for, as well as cash flow analysis, Martis has a strong forecasting area within it. I'm going to jump down to the next level here and just mention it has a seamless integration. I'll show you here in a sec. It's cloud-based, just like Intacct. So you just open an internet browser and you log in. You can have one tab open with Intacct and one with Martis if you're a user who has both access. It has a very intuitive design. Implementation on Martis, depending, it usually takes anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. And I would say it's 4 to 6 sessions. So if you said we have a short time frame where we want to get into budget season, it's more or less 4 to 6 calls. Now there's going to be some homework within the implementation that you'll have to do outside of the sessions, but it can get implemented rather quickly compared to a Sage Intacct implementation. Martis allows for shared insights, collaboration. So if your budgeting process today is more of collect all the spreadsheets and one person puts them together and then loads them into the accounting solution, this allows you to decentralize the whole budgeting process and basically push out piece by piece those, if you will, spreadsheets, worksheets is what Martis calls them, and they can do their part, and then it all comes together, and you see the end result once everything's been posted and processed. And very bottom there, you're getting more than just a software solution. They want you to simplify your financial management. So with Sage Intacct and Martis combined, you're really getting a combination for success here. All right, one more slide. The combination of the two, Martis and Sage Intacct, so they have API capabilities between the two. You're never going to know that information is missing from one or the other. Now, with that being said, if you wanted to have real-time updates for actuals, there is a sync button that you'll have to push. It does run overnight syncs, so if you notice that a transaction doesn't populate right away or it's missing, you have two options. You can wait for the overnight sync to take place, or you can go and manually push the button to process that sync right away. The beauty of it, just like RAMP, like Adam was talking about, your chart of accounts, your dimensions, the actuals, all of that, it's a bidirectional sync. So you'll have those push, the budgets push from Martis to Intacct. The coding, so if you add a new grant code or you add a new project, new department, those will sync from Intacct over to Martis, okay? So that's where all of this information that you're seeing, it's going between the two, so you're not having to manually create or do some form of import process between the systems. It's happening automatically between the two solutions. I'm going to bring up Martis now, and for those of you who have not seen it, when you log in, this is going to be the first screen that you see. It has aspects that are similar to Intacct. Obviously, the coloring scheme's a little different. No green, just blue here. You've got your release notes. So one thing that intrigues us with Martis, they continue to develop. So they're always pushing out new stuff, and you'll see the notes here from the latest one, which happened to be October 11th. So there, you don't really have to worry about, are they going to add new things? If you have something come up that's unique to your business, we could always approach Martis and say, hey, what can you do about this? And they're pretty good about adding new features in a timely manner. You're going to see budget info. Don't pay attention to my demo environment here. You can see my last closed month was December of 2021. But you will want to keep that up to date in your environment. That ensures that budgets don't get changed if the month has been closed. You'll see my current fiscal year here, and then you're going to have default budgets for planner purposes and also dashboard purposes. In my case, they're one and the same, but you could potentially have different ones there. And then we'll turn our attention to the menus on the left-hand side here. So you have dashboard, that's going to be your top one there, planner, personnel budgeting, admin reports, and then your setup. So I'll show a few things here. I'm not going to be able to get to everything. If you all have further questions or want to know more information, happy to set up a one-on-one demo of Martis for you. But if you look here in my setup, you're going to see things like accounts, dimensions, users. And so when I click into these, I just want to show you, just for your information, dimensions. These are going to match up with your Sage Intacct environment. So mine are just the basic ones, but you can see location, department, project, and you can view the options here. Your accounts, from a budget standpoint, many organizations don't necessarily want to budget balance sheet accounts. but maybe you want to have them in here for cash flow purposes. So you're going to see balance sheet accounts synced over to Martis. Here's my cash flow category for operating activities. As I scroll down and get more into our revenues, you have your different account types. And you can choose whether certain accounts get budgeted or not. You can choose whether they might be restricted, excluded, and so forth. So many of these have the capability to be budgeted for, or you could also inactivate them, say nobody's going to budget these specific accounts, and different things like that. Lots of flexibility on the account front. And then I'll go down to users here. So users come in packs of 5. So you'll get 5 users out of the box, and you'll know when you're reaching your maximum. And what I want to share with you is, if we look at my user, you can have role-based permissions. So if they're an admin, or maybe they need to just have specific department permissions, executive, which would be more like reporting and dashboards, you have the roles. And when I click on one, you'll notice that changes the, well, hang on, let's go back here, uncheck that, let's save. And you'll notice when I saved it, it changed. I no longer have admin permissions, but just dashboard financials, planner, summary, and worksheets. So if you want to have uniform permissions, role is probably best, or you could always go down line by line and pick and choose what certain users have access to, and then copy those users going forward if you have new users come on board. If it's just admin, we'll go back up to that, click save. And then one other area, if they are a department specific, location specific, you can have restrictions. So if I say that, load, and you can come down here line by line and check, okay, Adam might be budgeting location 300, and then you could save it. What that does is, when I start to look at my budget worksheets here, you're going to see in mine that I have everything. And so obviously you don't want every user to see every budget necessarily. So what this allows, if Adam has restriction to location 300, he's only going to see that. He's not going to see any of these other locations within his worksheets. So very important when it comes to decentralizing the budget process. You don't want them seeing everything, but you just need them to budget their part, and this will allow them to do that. Okay, and going back up here to my dashboard menu option, the updater, this is important for Sage Intacct users, because when I was mentioning the sync, if you happen to add a new code, let's say you added a new project or you added a new location department, this would ensure that it gets brought over to Martis if you did it in the same moment. So what I mean by that is, there's an overnight sync that takes place and would bring over any new codes. Now, if you just added a new project in Intacct, you would have to push this button to then see it in Martis. Okay? There's going to be an actuals updater here, and it brings over the past 3 months of actuals. It syncs those on a nightly basis. Let's say you had an audit completed and you wanted to bring over entries so that it reflected updated actuals for, let's just say, 6 months ago. You would want to come in here and make sure you do that manual sync, because again, on a nightly basis, it's only looking at the past 3 months. You can see in this updater queue down below what has gone through successfully. So when you do any of the syncs up above, it's going to show you once it's a success. This will also show you if you create a new budget, if you create a worksheet, if you do anything in the software, it's going to show you once it's complete, and show a green success symbol right here. Moving upwards to our financials here beneath the dashboard section. Everybody loves to see this area, so they have their own unique dashboards. You're going to see anything from income and expense. So this chart down here, you can see month over month. The bar is going to be the income. The line in red is going to be the expense, so you can see how that compares. Our chart to the right is going to be your monthly income, so you can compare current year versus prior year, blue bar versus yellow bar. And then your budget. So how did your budget compare to both current year and prior year? Jumping down, you have an account income top 10. So your GL accounts, where did most of your income, where was it applied? So was it contributions? Was it sales? And if you hover over this, you can see the percentages and actual dollar amount within those accounts. Monthly gain loss. So if this is going to compare again similar to the one up above, current year versus prior year and budget. So it's going to be, did you have more income than expenses or vice versa? Similar to what's up above too, you've got monthly expenses, current year versus prior year, and then your budget. And then also similar to the account income top 10, you have the expense top 10. So these are all pre-built dashboards. One other thing I'll mention is at the top, you can filter on anything. So your dimensions, let's say you wanted to see your dashboards updated for a specific department. All right, there's department 100 and how it's reflected down below. You can do that for any of these. You can change the time period at the top, the number of months you want to see, what budget version you want to use. So if you have, let's just say for instance, Martis allows you to have as many different budget versions as needed. So if you have a board approved budget that maybe it doesn't get touched the entire year, you don't want to make any changes to it, that's one version. And then you want to have an in-house or internal budget where maybe you make updates here and there month by month. That could be another version. And you can pick and choose which one you want to include here. So mine, I have an operating budget, as you can see in the drop down, but then I also have a forecast. So maybe I have 9 months of actuals plus 3 months of budget, and I want to see how that compares. So you can have as many versions of a budget as needed. Up here at the top, you have a variety of reports as well. So my dashboards are your charts and graphs. Income statement's going to show you, similar to a normal financial statement, what's it look like from an actual to budget perspective. So if you look at my columns, you have your months, and these are showing actuals that are pulled from Sage Intacct. And then if I go over to the right, you can see that December is my only budget month. Let's just change this to 6/20/21. Okay, that then changed it. You're still getting a trailing 12 months. So actuals from July 2020 up to June 2021. Looking further off to the right, you have your year-to-date comparison, actual, budget, and variance. And then you have your 12-month budget or total to the far right. And then it gives you what amount of budget is remaining. So that's going to be your income statement option at the top. And I'm not going to go into many more of these, but you can see the options that you have here. So you have things like forecast, you have multi-year budget to actuals, you have a monthly budget comparison. So many different options. The other thing I like about Martis too is if all those options we just looked at don't cut it, you have your report builder. And your report builder allows you to customize the layout, the data that's being pulled in. So I have a few out here that are created as tests and whatnot and shared, but they also have templates. So a variety of templates where maybe there's a report that a client or partner used and they found that, hey, more organizations might use it, and they've added it out here as a template. Okay. All right, that's the dashboard and reporting strength of Martis. You get all of that. You get the Sage actuals, you get the Martis budget all in one. Now let's jump into the actual budgeting process. So if we look at our planner here, I'm going to expand that. You have a summary option, which I'll look at here in a brief minute. The worksheets are where I want to focus, but it wouldn't be right if I didn't start with the planner itself. So the planner, think of it as this is your Excel workbook. So if you're currently budgeting in Excel, it's the main version. It's not the tabs at the bottom, it's the whole workbook itself. So that would be your planner. So when the new year rolls around, you're going to create your budget, and you can see I have a variety of versions here. Once you create your budget, and let's just go through this exercise a little bit. Let's say test there. You have the different methods here. So you could copy your budget from a prior year. You could copy budget and load actuals for certain months in the prior year, or you could create an entirely empty budget and have your users, whether it be department managers, location managers, you could have them fill it out without knowing prior year activity. So you've got those options when you create it, and then once created, it's going to create worksheets. So when I look at worksheet management here, you'll see my dimensions. Again, this is going to be a unique part of your organization, so your dimensions may not look just like mine. So right now, we're budgeting at a location level as well as a department level. So somebody, in this case, Ed, is the owner of location 100 and department 100. You can assign unique people, or maybe like this organization here, you have Ed in charge of this one, and then you have Diana down here. You might have different approvers, so you have the flexibility to change those out depending on the worksheet. And you can have a gain-loss target. So if you're targeting a certain amount, aiming for that, that's what you're seeing in this column here. Now, this isn't where you actually budget. This is just the worksheets that are being created for this planner. So think of it like an Excel workbook. Your planner is the workbook. Your tabs are going to be each one of these unique combinations here. So you have a unique tab for each one of these. And for Ed and Diana, they're going to go here to this worksheets menu option. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, I'm seeing everything in mine, but if your users are restricted by, say, location or department, they're not going to see all of these. They're just going to see the ones related to them. So like if I were Ed or logged in as Ed, he's just going to see these two here. And when he's ready to budget, he's going to click the pencil icon to the left. Okay. And depending on how you define or input the layout of the worksheet, that's going to show the specific accounts they should budget, right? So maybe your organization is a little different than this one. This one has a variety of income and expense accounts, but you can define. So if you wanted to remove a row from this budget, it's as simple as coming over here to check the box, and then you can say delete lines. So most organizations I work with, they try to get a uniform budget layout. So they might have the same accounts on every worksheet. If you didn't want to do that and you wanted to have a more specialized approach, you can select the income and expense accounts needed for each one of those. When Ed comes out here to budget, you can see values are populated in mine. This one looks to be completed. That could be true, or maybe this one was bringing over last year's budget. or maybe even a combination of last year's actuals and budget, you're going to see the reference data at the top. And so you can select that. Again, mine might not have information per se, but between Intacct and Martis, if you had last year's budget, you would see information here and would be able to compare the two. So you could use that to then come up with this year's budget number. And when that is ready to be input, Ed could come in here and type in or type over an existing value. Okay. And then once the changes are made, you click the floppy disk icon and save it. These could all be adjusted until the budget is locked after it's been approved, if you have approval processes in place, or maybe you don't need approvals, you have just a final reviewer. They come out, they click this lock icon, and then no further changes can be made unless an admin person unlocks it. One area I want to highlight here too is this icon that's a calculator. So I just clicked in here and was able to change the value. Another way to input your budget is going to be clicking the calculator. You could come in, you can manually change these. You could also take a different approach, and you could use an allocation, you could copy values, you could use a burn rate, adjust. If I wanted to make it uniform, I could say 5,000 preview. That just copies 5,000 every month, and that's based on my starting month here, ending month. Again, not everyone's organization is going to be straightforward as that. You might have some months that are higher than others. You might have periods that are specific to your business where they're higher or lower, and that's where those allocations might come into play, different adjustments. Also, I would say that might be a reason why you would want to bring over last year's budget values or actuals for that matter in here so that your users could see, well, what did it look like last year? You can see where the ebbs and flows are, and then they can go in and update it. So in a nutshell, that's the budget worksheet. The beauty of it is it's not in Excel. It's in Martis here. Your users log in, they input their budget in a variety of ways could be, and then it goes off to an approver or somebody who's maybe a final reviewer, and then once it's ready, that's when it gets pushed over to Sage Intacct, and you can compare budget to actuals there as well as in Martis. So much more formal process than if you're currently utilizing Excel today. You might be asking yourself, well, that's it? It doesn't seem like that's worth the investment. Well, I'm just getting started here. I know we're running out of time today, but I'm going to highlight a few things. Special purpose worksheets. These are more or less used if you have calculations involved in your budgeting process. So maybe you have ticket revenue, or you have specific events where you need to say, if we have 50 people, that means there's going to be X amount of costs for each person. These worksheets here are going to allow your users to input certain maybe statistical values and calculate their budget that way. We see this used all the time. Again, it gets it out of Excel and more so that others can review it and you can input it, and it loads nicely into the budget itself. So keep that in mind. And then last but not least here, personnel budgeting. Martis does a great job with this. There's so much more to it than I'll probably be able to show you here today. But let's look at a scenario. You can build any number of scenarios. This one here is if you had a 5% cost of living adjustment and what that might look like in your budget. These are all building blocks. So if you look at my tabs across the top, there's building blocks here, and then my menu options to the left. So you have your employees, right? Your employees fill different positions within your organization. With each employee comes maybe their salary or hourly rate, their fringe benefits, taxes, bonuses, stuff like that. And so when you look over here on my left, you have the employees, you have position types, you have pay types. So if we look at pay types, and I know I'm kind of jumping around here, but pay types are going to be what I just kind of rattled off there. If they're an hourly or salary employee, maybe they get overtime, bonuses, you have health insurance, retirement match, Medicare, so taxes, essentially anything that might be an expense to your organization, that's going to be a pay type. There are different ways to set these up, so we won't be able to get into all of it, but if you have bonuses, maybe it's a once a year bonus, or maybe it's on their anniversary, so you can see that here. You can set that up. A lot of this is based on time periods or percentages and whatnot, so that's going to go into it. Jumping back to my scenario here, when I look at a position, an employee is going to be assigned to a position. So when I look at CFO here, you can see that Caden is a part of the executive team. You have FTE trackability here, starting end date, their home, I would say cost center, if you will. A lot of other solutions use that term, but it's a combination of location, department, project, and you might budget at different dimensions that are unique to your organization. But for Caden here, the majority of their time goes to location 100, department 200, and non-project related project. This could be unique to each position. So this is more or less, I keep saying, home cost center, home location, home department. That's not realistic to many organizations I work with. They say, well, an employee could work in location 100 for half their time and location 200 for the other half of their time. There's an allocation process there. So you'll notice when I back out of here, I have an allocation option. So just keep in mind, if your personnel expenses need to be allocated, Martis can build that out, can handle many different allocation types. And so we would go through all of these tabs and all of these personnel budgeting building blocks during an implementation. Make sure you get all of this set up. And then what happens is these values flow into your budget. So the worksheets we were looking at, this information is going to flow over there. So you have a month-by-month breakdown. And I had this question come up the other day. It's not going to show you employee information when you transfer your budget over to Sage. It's just going to show you the locations, the departments, the projects that everything gets split out to. So it really does a great job in the personnel area. So the users who plug these values in here obviously see this information, but it doesn't always expand outwards, so you don't have to worry about that security risk. Okay, and I'm going to kind of pause there. I'll see if there are questions, and then we'll round out the user group for this afternoon.
I do see a question, Luke. One person is asking, well, she's saying, I currently upload the Sage budget for the financials. Will the Martis budget upload to Sage budget?
It will. So if I look at the Intacct menu option here, it might take a second to jump to that area from my personnel budgeting. Short answer is yes. You'll push the Martis budget information. So right here, upload budget to Intacct. You pick which version, and then also, if you're familiar with the Intacct budgeting, you have maybe it's simple as budget here, and you'll select it so it flows into the right budget in Intacct, and you'll click the button.
Very good. That's it for questions right now.
Okay, I will let's pull up the slides from earlier, and I'll just reiterate here. If you could, as everyone leaves the user group, if you could take the survey right around 2 minutes, and you'll get entered for an Amazon gift card. Really appreciate your feedback and appreciate all of you who attended today's user group. If anybody has questions or needs help with anything, feel free to reach out to any of us on the screen there. Once again, thank you for attending the fall user group here.